All right. Bonjour, Wache Anin Tansi. Welcome to our recognition of National Indigenous Veterans Day. On behalf of Lakehead University and Confederation College, we are happy that you are able to join us today. Denise Baxter, Indigenous, Makwa Dodem, Martin Falls, and Donjaba. My name is Denise Baxter, Vice Provost, Indigenous Initiatives here at Lakehead University. Lakehead University respectfully acknowledges that its campuses are located on the traditional lands of Indigenous peoples. Lakehead Thunder Bay is located on the traditional lands of Fort William First Nation, signatory to the Robinson Spirit Treaty of 1850. Lakehead Aurelia is located on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, which include the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. Lakehead University also acknowledges the history that many nations hold in this area around our campuses and is committed to a relationship with First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples based on the principles of mutual trust, respect, reciprocity, and collaboration in the spirit of reconciliation. Before we begin, I would like to share an important notice of video recording of National Indigenous Veterans Day event. Participants are reminded that, of course, there is a camera, so if you're at the podium particularly, there will be the camera on you. What we do is we keep a record of this, we put it on our website, we use it for learning opportunities for students in classes at times, and also for the public if they wish to log on to view any of the video. So we do have a YouTube channel that it's posted on under the Indigenous Initiatives webpage. If there's any needs for washrooms, they're over to the right or over to the left on the main floor. You can go either way. And then we do have refreshments at the back that please feel free to help yourself with that. I would like to just acknowledge all the guests that we have. We have veterans that are here. We have people that were in the active service. And we have those from our community. So I just like to really say thank you to everybody for coming. For Chief Solomon from Fort William First Nation for joining us here as well. And for those who are joining us online, thank you for joining us online. It is now my pleasure to invite Melissa Roberts, who is a knowledge keeper and works predominantly with Confederation College in this particular role today. We were just chatting beforehand, saying that we always see each other out at different things and events around the community, but we're really pleased to welcome Melissa here to Lakehead today. So welcome.
Bonjour, Nindanawe Moganatog, Nishwaswe Magiziwak, Nichnakas Makwado Dem, Anemkiwe Gidon and Donji. Hapachigo Mikwich Bizendawik, Mino Gizigad, Chimikwich Kajemanado, Minwa Nokamasug, Chimikwich Mushomasug. What I said there was a traditional Ojibwe protocol greeting. I said, hello, all of my relatives. My spirit name is Nishwaswe Magiziwak, and the name my parents gave me when I was born is Melissa. I am Bear Clan, and my family has been living in Thunder Bay and Emkiwekudon for my entire life. My mother's people came from a fur trading post area in East Maine, Quebec, and are historically recognized as one of the first 7 families to settle here in Thunder Bay with the fur trade to help grow the community of Fort William. So it is an extreme honor, a great honor to be here standing in front of you, starting the day off hopefully in a good way. And when I was on my way here, I was thinking that, you know, there's nothing I can say that would have the impact of the stories that can be shared by the veterans who are in our midst today. I stand here as a granddaughter. My grandfather saw active duty in World War II in the Canadian Navy, and my father was a member of the Lake Superior Scottish Regiment. So I have a great deal of respect and pride in being able to say that my family made the choice to make sacrifices and to serve our people as well, even when they weren't necessarily recognized as Canadian citizens. So I hope today that as we gather together, that we come with an open mind and an open heart, and that we take time to find those veterans and to listen to their stories and to thank them for the sacrifices and the things that they have done so that we may be here today to gather as a people, to share our language, to wear our Métis sashes and our ribbon skirts and our beaded poppies. So, miigwech.
Miigwech. And thank you for that lovely opening, but also the connection. I think that's one of the things you'll hear today as different people speak. We all have those connections some ways, whether it's friends or whether it's family, to unfortunately those that have been lost in service, but also those who have chosen to serve. So on that note, I would like to welcome Dr. David Barnett, who is the Vice Provost and, Provost and Vice President Academic here at Lakehead University. Welcome.
Thanks, Denise. Appreciate that. Bonjour and welcome. I'd also like to thank Melissa for the opening today as we gather to pay tribute to the important contributions and sacrifices made by First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in service. I would like to extend a warm welcome to our invited guests and speakers that have joined us here today. Over 12,000 Indigenous people are estimated to have volunteered in all three wars, and over 2,700 Indigenous people are in active service today. As First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people were not considered citizens of Canada, they were not eligible for conscription in the First World War. And despite this, many volunteered, facing considerable challenges, which included traveling long distances, learning a new language, and coping with racism. Many soldiers returned home only to find that the policies of enfranchisement under the Indian Act resulted in their loss of identity as status Indian, received no benefits, and many had their reserve land sold to the Soldier Settlement Board, thereby reducing the size of the First Nation community. First Nation, Métis, and Inuit soldiers brought unique skills and attributes to their service in the armed forces, including tracking, such as Private Joseph de Laurent from Nipigon Red Sky Métis Independent Nation, who was awarded a military medal. Thomas Godshare from Long Lake was awarded for his scouting skills and bravery. The Blanger brothers, Peter and Augustin from Fort William First Nation, who enlisted in World War I, and were awarded military medals for crossing multiple miles to deliver messages to code talkers, such as Charles Checker Tompkins of the Métis Nation, who was fluent in Cree language and had significant impacts in the wars. Others, like Edith Anderson Montour, a young woman from Six Nations Grand River Reserve in Ontario, served as a nurse in World War I. Many others served with distinctions, winning medals for bravery and action and giving their lives in the service. This year, Lakehead University and Confederation College have come together to commemorate this important day, and we are excited to be able to share an exhibit at each of our campuses for students and the public to view. The exhibit you see here today is a version of the Indigenous Veterans of Treaty 3 project developed back in 2018 by the Fort Frances Museum and Cultural Center, Kanachiwanang Historical Center, and Glenn Jourdain of Couchiching, whose research and photos laid the foundation of this project and unfortunately passed away in July of 2021. This exhibit was curated in the spirit of collaboration and reconciliation and shared the triumphs and sometimes shocking realities faced by Indigenous veterans across Canada, and specifically those from Treaty 3. With a specific focus on World War I and World War II, but also including other wars to the present day, this exhibit highlights specific veterans, their triumphs, setbacks, Indigenous women's roles, mixing of Indigenous and military culture, and honors those who came home and those who did not. This is a growing exhibit. When it started, it began with around 100 names of veterans and has grown to be over 324. The Thunder Bay Museum has curated an additional part of the display to recognize First Nation and Métis veterans from the Robinson Superior Treaty area who also served. We'd like to extend a special thanks to those of the Fort Frances Museum and Cultural Center, Kanachiwanang Historical Center, Thunder Bay Museum, and Thunder Bay Military Museum, the City of Thunder Bay, and the Métis Nation of Ontario for loaning Lakehead University these displays. So I'd like to now take this opportunity to introduce Michelle Salo, President of Confederation College. President Salo.
Bijou, Washe, Anin, Tansei. This year, Confederation College is pleased to collaborate with Lakehead University on National Indigenous Veterans Day. We're also honored to host the Native Veterans Association of Northwestern Ontario's exhibit on our Thunder Bay campus. The Native Veterans Association of Northwestern Ontario was founded by the late Charles Willie John. Willie was a member of the Red Rock Band located at Lake Helen Reserve near Nipigon, Ontario. A veteran of the Second World War, he dreamed of forming an organization of Indigenous veterans, and on November 11th, 1988, that dream became a reality. Indigenous veterans and their families from across Northwestern Ontario participated in Remembrance Day service on Mount McKay at Fort William First Nation. Some of the photos from the first ceremonies are included in this exhibit. We'd like to acknowledge the entire team that brought this original project together. Beverly Alto, graphic design, digitization lead, and web gallery. Greg Quashigan, researcher, contact, and web contributions. Owen Zokel, researcher, writer, artist, web contributions. Stan Alto, team leader, editor, and webmaster. Brian Walmark, project consultant. And last but not least, David Michael Thompson, research developer and project manager, who has joined us here today. Confederation College and Lakehead University are privileged to be able to share these exhibits at our respective campuses this year. These exhibits will be on display until November 11th. We encourage you to visit both campuses and take the time to explore these exhibits. Miigwech Marcy Cho. Thank you.
So extra special thanks. This is our first time that I've had a chance to meet with President Salo from Confederation College. So we're really pleased that you're able to join us today. Miigwech, thank you. And also to Dr. Barnett for sharing his comments earlier. We now have a special guest who I know has a very busy, work and personal life, I'm sure, because I think work never really ends. And so Chief Michelle Solomon is here with us from Nemkiwaju or Fort William First Nation. And we're always really pleased and privileged when you're able to take time out of the work that you do on behalf of your community, recognizing that many members of your community actually were members that are served and over the last few hundred years. So just want to say an extra special thanks for joining us, but also welcome you up to share some remarks.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Good afternoon, Ani Bojo, Oshki Mekana, Ikwe Dejnukas, Makwa Dodem, and Mki Waju and Joji. So as I've been introduced, I'm Michelle Solomon. I'm the current elected chief of what they call Fort William First Nation. But my spirit name is New Path Woman. I'm Bear Clan, and I like to reference that Fort William First Nation was a name that was given to us. And so I like to make mention and acknowledgement that I'm from Nemkiwaju, which is our beautiful sacred mountain that rests in our community. So it's certainly a pleasure to be with all of you today. And, today, as if I'm correct, I may be wrong. But as I recall, today may be the actual 30th anniversary of the Indigenous Veterans Day, where this started in 1994. The acknowledgement of Indigenous Veterans Day in a way that marks their contribution that had never happened prior to that. Certainly the previous speakers, particularly Mr. Barnett, spoke to, the things that occurred for our veterans that went to war to serve on behalf of all Canadians and, came home to very difficult and challenging circumstances where, because of the Indian Act that, we've been living with for all these years, that really left them in the vulnerable position of they don't belong to their communities anymore by virtue of no longer being status And that, if you know anything about enfranchisement, that is just one aspect of enfranchisement that has impacted our people. But this, for this to come after returning from war, after fighting for the freedoms that we all, have come to appreciate and, make this the country that it is. I'm so grateful that we can look back and make sure that, that never happens again. But not only that, um, with the displays that are here, we can get, a little more personal look. We can get a little snapshot of what that history was in a way that we may not have before. And I know that I was able to take this in last year, and lots of things that you think you know, but you don't. And so I too continue to learn and continue to understand more the experiences. And I was very young when my grandfather passed away, but he served in war along with many of his brothers who um, also are part of Fort William First Nation. And of course, many people from Fort William First Nation served and continue to serve. So, it's really a wonderful opportunity to give acknowledgement to that and give acknowledgement to all those who gave of their lives and sometimes gave with their lives for all of us. So, with that, I just want to say miigwech on behalf of the leadership of my community. And to my community, I want to say miigwech for an opportunity to come here and acknowledge and give voice to these experiences. And thank you so much. Thank you.
Miigwech, Chief Solomon, for sharing those remarks and also a little bit about your family history. It's now also, I'd like to introduce Senator Grant Robbins with the Thunder Bay District and Métis Council. Welcome.
You can probably see from my back, I'm a senator and also captain of the hunt for the Métis Nation of Ontario. Tanzi, bonjour. I'm very happy to be here this morning. Welcome to our guests, veterans, and students. A little about my background. I'm a Red River Métis out of Manitoba, with ties to Batoche, Saskatchewan, and also communities within Ontario near the Mattawa Lake Nipissing area. Numerous members of my family served in the Second World War, and as far back as the Battle of Batoche in 1885. In 1885, they were not on the side of the Canadian government, or the so-called Canadian government at that time. They fought alongside Louis Riel and his people at Batoche. After that battle, of course, we were splintered. My family scattered across the country, ending up mainly in Manitoba and then eventually into Ontario. It is an honor to be speaking on such an important day, Indigenous Veterans Day. This day, November 8th, honors our Indigenous men and women who enlisted in Canada's armed forces. They served our nation during conflict and peace times. Many soldiers lost their lives or suffered debilitating injuries, both physical and mental, during these tours of duty. Today, we take time to honor the contributions made by these individuals. For years, Indigenous veterans weren't allowed to participate in Remembrance Day ceremonies as a group. So for that reason, Métis, Inuit, and First Nations created their own day to honor their military service. It is important to educate the public about the lost rights and benefits of returning Métis, Inuit, and First Nations service women and men. After years of service, Indigenous veterans received little public recognition or support. They were denied access to areas that provided returning soldiers with land, job opportunities, and security. With these denied access areas, it created wounds that can be associated with injustices that need to be healed. This is why we must acknowledge the crucial first step or objective for truth and reconciliation with our Indigenous veterans, which includes prejudice against these Indigenous veterans and the broken promises that even today still exist. So today on November 8th, it is so imperative and respectful to honor these veterans. And one way is through the beaded poppy, which signifies pride and resilience. White beaded poppies honor all veterans. They draw attention and focus on the uniqueness of the Indigenous people served. Thank you again for allowing me to speak in my own words about Indigenous veterans. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your courage, strength, and dedication to keeping us safe. Merci, miigwech.
Miigwech, thank you for sharing that as well. And also for the little correction, because as I was saying, fighting alongside Canada, you're very correct that sometimes Indigenous people were on opposite sides of the crown at different points through history. And so thank you for acknowledging that. It's now my pleasure to introduce, I think, a very special person, Lieutenant Colonel Darla Oja. Lieutenant Colonel Oja is a retired commissioned officer of the Canadian Armed Forces with 31 years of service. She has served in a variety of command, leadership, and managerial positions as a logistic officer, which included her last position as commanding officer at 38th Service Battalion from 2019 to 2023. Though she retired after a fulfilling military career, Lieutenant Colonel Oja has found it hard to sit still. She has since returned to Lakehead University as a full-time student, is the women's representative for the Métis Nation of Ontario Veterans Council, and continues to travel as time allows. Always a lifelong learner, doer, and traveler, she is supported and accompanied by her loving husband, Terry, and their very energetic Airedale, Kramer. And I chuckled when you said you had an Airedale because they are very energetic dogs. And Darla's in one of my classes and she's like, just got a lot of energy and a lot of good energy to give and to share. So I was really pleased that she had agreed to come and speak today as one of the veterans who has served a full career within the Armed Forces of Canada. So welcome.
I don't have that problem of being tall, so this mic fits me perfect, right? And as we grow older, sometimes we have to pull out like little magnifying glasses and put them on. So I used to think this was my, am I Spider-Man, am I Lieutenant Colonel Darla, or am I student Darla? So I guess I'm a bit of both today. So bonjour Tanzi, my name is Darla. I am Métis from the motherlands of Saskatchewan, Alberta, Red River, and now Ontario. This is where my children were born, and this is where I've lived for the last 27 years. My ancestral surnames include Bruneau, Lacerte, Ouellette, Capulet, Bottineau, Cardinal, and Mustatip. I mention these names to honor those who stand with me today and to help my Métis relations connect to me as a Métis person. Thank you, Denise, and all the staff involved for your warm welcome and for supporting this exhibit, a tribute to the courage, resilience, and invaluable contributions of Indigenous veterans. It's an honor to stand before you today as a proud member of the Métis Nation and as a representative of the Métis Nation of Ontario Veterans Council, where I serve as the women's representative. This role and the journey to it have held deep meaning for me, both as a military officer and a Métis woman. Reflecting on my career in the Canadian Armed Forces, I recognize that my path has been shaped by the spirit of service, one that I believe runs deep in our Indigenous and Métis communities. When I enlisted at the tender age of 17 in 1992, I was filled with excitement and pride to serve my country. Over the years, I advanced from private to sergeant, a journey that included domestic operations here in Canada and an international deployment to Bosnia-Herzegovina. In 2009, I accepted a commission and became an officer. This opened new opportunities and unexpected paths. I deployed across Canadian provinces into Nunavut and into the Northwest Territories. I traveled to Hawaii, where I was stationed on Ford Island, which is in Pearl Harbor. And in 2019, I was promoted to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel, and I was appointed the commanding officer of 38th Service Battalion. And finally, after 31 years, in 2023, I retired. Yet as I moved through the ranks, I also was on another journey that was that was unfolding within me. I undertook a reclamation of my Indigenous heritage. Growing up, I always knew that I was Métis. I didn't need a government card to tell me what my culture was. However, with the prevalence of pretendian narratives today, simply being was no longer enough. Reclamation was a journey perhaps I should have taken sooner. Tracing my ancestors and their place in our cultural lineage grounded me, and this revealed strengths and achievements that resonated throughout my bloodline. In 2021, I was formally recognized, finally, as a Métis citizen and became a carded member of the Métis Nation of Ontario. This reclamation deepened my self-understanding and strengthened my connection to the Indigenous men and women who serve and continue to serve in Canada with remarkable courage and honor. Today, as we stand before this exhibit, we honor the First Nations, the Métis, and the Indigenous and the Inuit veterans who have served Canada across generations. Indigenous veterans who have often been unsung heroes, answering the call in times of war and peace, from the battlefields of Europe to domestic operations here at home. This exhibit honors Indigenous women who have played vital roles in times of peace and conflict. These women supported their communities both on the home front and in service, acting as a cultural guardian and leaders who preserve traditions in face of adversity. Indigenous women who continue to serve today and who I'm proud to be counted amongst. In my role as the Métis Nation of Ontario Veteran Council Women's Representative, I hope to represent the courage and resilience of all Indigenous women in the Canadian Armed Forces who, like myself, had to reconcile and reclaim their Indigenous identity within their careers. We serve as stewards to our heritage, embracing our identities while dedicating ourselves to defending our communities and our nation. I am privileged to advocate for our veterans and champion the voices of Métis women. It is an honor to have supported those who have committed themselves to serving our country while navigating the challenges of Indigenous identity within a larger, often unaccommodating system. Thank you for joining me in honoring these heroes. May we carry forward their stories and remember that they have not served for medals or recognition, but out of love for their communities, their lands, and their heritage. It is our duty to ensure their legacy is never forgotten. Miigwech Marcy.
Marcy, Darla, and thank you for sharing your remarks with us today. I would now like to invite Melissa up to join me as we invite everyone to stand if you're able. If you're not, you can remain seated. And we would like to take a moment to reflect, honor, and remember our fallen veterans. And I'm going to add a little bit in here because we serve in different ways. And service with the veterans is one way, but we have a recent leader, Senator Murray Sinclair, who also started his journey to the spirit world this week. So also to keep him in our thoughts too. Miigwech. Okay, please have a seat. Thank you. And miigwech for that beautiful song that you shared with us. All right, we're going to continue on with our program. I have somebody here from the city of Thunder Bay, and this somebody, her name is Cynthia Olson. And not her predecessor, but we have always worked with the Office of Indigenous Initiatives through the City of Thunder Bay. And so this is really one of the first times that we've had the Director of Strategy and Engagement join us, but we're really thrilled that Cynthia is here, and I'd like to welcome her up to the stand. Welcome.
Bonjour, my name is Cynthia Olson, and it is a profound honor to stand here today on behalf of the City of Thunder Bay and the Indigenous Relations Office as we come together to recognize and pay tribute to the Indigenous men and women who have served this country with exceptional courage and dedication. Miigwech Denise, for your invitation to this year's event. The city is always happy to collaborate with you and Lakehead University on important events like this one. I do want to take a moment to honor all the veterans that are here with us today. I'm so grateful for your service and want to bring recognition to your sacrifices. I would like to also honor the sacred items here today, in particular, Melissa, with your drum and your opening remarks. And Lieutenant Colonel Darla Oja for sharing and for serving and being present with us today. I'd like to acknowledge Chief Solomon of the Nemki and Senator Grant Robbins with the Métis Nation. Thank you for sharing your connection to veterans and the history that your peoples have experienced. Today on Indigenous Veterans Day, we honor the sacrifices and contributions of Indigenous veterans who, despite facing historical and ongoing injustices, stood on the front lines for Canada. These brave individuals fought for the freedoms we all enjoy, bringing them a strength rooted in their cultures, their traditions, and their deep connection to the land. Their sacrifices deserve not only our gratitude, but our unwavering commitment to remember and honor them. As a city and as a community, we are advancing truth and reconciliation, understanding that this requires deep respect for the legacy of Indigenous veterans and a dedication to building meaningful partnerships with Indigenous communities. Thunder Bay is on a journey toward reconciliation, and today we acknowledge that honoring our veterans is an essential part of this path. We must ensure that the voices and experiences and contributions of Indigenous veterans are recognized as integral to our shared history. In honoring their service, we are reminded of the responsibilities we carry forward. At the City of Thunder Bay, we are committed to fostering respectful and enduring partnerships with Indigenous communities, collaborations that aim to build a future rooted in equality, respect, and understanding. Through this commitment, we not only recognize the sacrifices of those who have served, but we will also work to ensure that Indigenous veterans and their families find a place of honor in our city and that their legacy inspires generations to come. As we stand together today, let us remember that true reconciliation requires more than words. It demands action and a collective commitment to creating a society where all contributions are valued, where stories are heard, and where justice is achieved. Thank you, merci miigwech, and thank you very much for curating these exhibits. I do look forward to spending time and viewing them.
Thank you, Cynthia, for your remarks and for coming on behalf of the city. And actually, the city was part of putting this project together as well here and at Confederation College. So also please extend that thanks to your staff. So we have David Michael Thompson, who is, some of you who were here last year may recall he was also with us here last year. And, has been really a key person in helping this and other exhibits grow, but really the awareness of Native veterans, our Indigenous veterans through the period of time, last 100 years at least. And so we're really excited that David Michael is back again. He worked as the research developer and project manager of the Native Veterans Association of Ontario exhibit. So it's our deepest pleasure to welcome David back with us today. Welcome.
Bonjour, Yakinoya. Hello, everyone. My name is David. I'm the research developer for the Native Veterans Association of Northwestern Ontario. The Native Veterans Association of Northwestern Ontario was founded by the late Charles William John, whom I knew fondly as Willie. So that's how I know him. And Willie was from Opoganassening, which is the Red Rock, place of the Red Rock pipestone, which is located near on Lake Helen near Nipigon. His Anishinaabe name was Shingo Sibi, which translates as sitting weasel. Shingo Sibi's clan was Ogishkamanasi, which is the kingfisher, the type of bird. Willie was a native rights activist. He was a former chief of his community. He was also a veteran, and when I spent a lot of years with him as my elder. So he mentored me. He mentored me during those important years that we were working together. He was a veteran of the Second World War. His dream of forming an organization of Native veterans became a reality when the founding meeting took place on November 11th, 1988. It seemed like a good year for things happening in Native country, Indian country. It was the same year I graduated from Lakehead University here. And during that time, there was a gathering of Native veterans and families that came from different parts of Northwestern Ontario and participated in Remembrance Day service on Mount McKay out on Fort William First Nation territory. And that's where I came into the picture. Like I mentioned, I graduated, and that's the same year Willie and other veterans formed their organization. And so he came and recruited me and called me up, says, "Hey, I want you to come to a meeting." Good, because you said so, I'm coming. And so this founding meeting and conference took place at the Prince Arthur downtown there, PA, on November 11th. And so I just sat there and listened. And I was listening to all the speakers talk, and Willie was talking about his dream was to have a local historical book compiled about Anishinaabe contribution during the wars. And they wanted this history told in the Anishinaabe way, eh? Not somebody else's narrative like it has been in the past, and they messed it up really bad. So anything you've read about Indians prior that were written by non-Indians, I would really, really scrutinize what they wrote in those books, because it's really bad stuff. So we wanted this book to be written in a narrative of the Anishinaabe point of view. This book would serve as a testament to the sacrifices and achievements of Anishinaabe soldiers who returned home as veterans to assume leadership roles in their communities. And this happened after World War I. Our veterans came together. They had this crazy experience going over, seeing the devastation of war in Europe. Came back and started seeing a bigger picture of their own place on their own homeland, where they still had to fight for freedoms here. And they started forming national organizations. Eh? They formed the League of Canadian Indians, which became one of the first national organizations across Canada. And then after World War II, all the boys and girls that came home then had a new experience of war. But again, they still saw the war wasn't over. The war was still here to fight for our own rights in our own homelands. And so they in Ontario here, the veterans were instrumental in forming what became known as the Union of Ontario Indians. So Willie's wish was to have this book become part of the school curriculum so that all people would become aware of what Anishinaabe veterans did for Canada. He also wanted the Anishinaabe children to learn and be proud of their people's military heritage. The Native veterans adopted the red floral beaded poppy with an eagle feather as their logo. The organization also discussed an erection of a monument in northwestern Ontario for Native veterans. The organization also established a newsletter called Shemaganish, which in our language means soldier. Definitely Superior Art Gallery at the time donated a space in their building for their organization to get started. And there's a little side note I want to add to that. It was in this gallery that the first exhibit of Native veteran photographs were displayed. And I'm just trying to find my little note here. So how that came to be was at the time, Willie said, I was driving taxi and he said, I got a call to pick up a woman. He says, when I got to the address, she was standing by the curb armed with a vacuum cleaner. He says, I helped her put it into the cab and this nice lady and I got to talking. And she asked me what I wanted to do. And so he told her, and then she said, well, why don't we do it? And from there, in his words, from there she helped me set it up. He said, I wanted to give special thanks and mention to that person was Lynn Sharman at the time, who was the head of the Superior Gallery that hosted the first exhibit of photographs of Native veterans. And then during that time, when that first gathering happened, people were asking, like, why did it take so long to form an organization? You know, we're all a bunch of old men now. But when the discussion started talking, they started realizing there was always opposition to any kind of Native organization, especially veterans, say warrior societies. They're trying to set something up. And just as I mentioned previously, the First World War veterans went through that. There was a lot of undermining of their efforts by Indian agents, RCMP, you know, because they saw the organizations speaking up for themselves, but they saw them as threats to, you know, the powers that be. And same thing with after World War II. Same reaction when the veterans were organizing the Union of Ontario Indians. This was across Canada. Again, they were seen as a threat to the powers that be. You know, Indians can't be doing stuff for themselves. Indians can't do this. Indians can't do that. And that's how it's always been. And so when this organization formed in '88, Willie's dream was to have a voice for the veterans at that time, especially now that they were in their elderly years, because of the language barriers. Northwestern Ontario is not a small place; it's huge, and so he saw the need for services to be expanded into a lot of the fly-in communities and the more remote communities, to get, you know, to ensure they got their benefits that they're entitled to. So at that time, the gathering included a feast and a powwow. Now, powwows were outlawed for the longest time until 1952 when the Indian Act was changed. Again, that was through the efforts of veterans that came back, that took up those leadership roles, said, hey, you know, things need to change. We want change. Better things for our people. And up to that time, veterans could not enter a Royal Canadian Legion because they served liquor, and part of the Indian Act up to that time, you know, you weren't allowed to serve liquor to Indians. So unfortunately, a lot of our veterans were excluded from participating in the Legion activities. they had to hang out at the back doors, and if they have their buddies inside, bring them out, a drink, sneak them out a drink. So the powwows again, too, at that time, it changed things. I went to my first powwow. I was 9 years old. I was taken up to Anemkiwaju for a powwow. And that was my first time going to a powwow, because up to that time, not too long before that, there was no powwows because I was outlawed through the Indian Act. And I was introduced to the dancing circle by a kind gentleman, Dennis Charlie from Port de Limp First Nation. He brought me into the circle. I'll never forget that. And I bumped into him not too long ago, and it was kind of nice to reconnect again. So powwows have been growing since, and at every powwow, we have powwows through the year now, every season. Powwows is really important, and I'll add that information in why it's powwow. So powwows are held in honor of the Indian veterans at the time. In the traditions of Anishinaabe people, veterans are held in high regard. In the ceremony of the powwow, it's often the veterans who carry the flags into the circle during grand entry. These flags include the eagle staffs, which is the national flag of the Anishinaabe people, the Canadian flag, the US flag. These flags are honored by the flag song, and then there's the veteran song. A World War II soldier drum was brought all the way from Manitou Rapids that time to honor this historic gathering of Indian veterans. The veteran song begins, and all those who served in the military dance in the circle first, and then the family members join in, and then finally everyone's invited to dance in honor of our country's protectors. The song and dance ceremonies instill emotional pride, just like I shared the first time I danced into the circle, that brings, brings a lot of goosebumps to you, and a lot of makes your heart, feel really happy. So when we do that for our veterans during the dance of the veteran song, that brings a lot of healing as well, because they came back with a lot of scars, emotionally, physically, mentally. And it brings back pride that we are free and live in peace. The Anishinaabe word for, as I mentioned earlier, for soldier is shamaganish, but we also have other ancient warrior titles that are used, such as Ogichita. Ogichita means the ones with the big hearts. And Minisino. These words all have important meanings in Anishinaabe culture. And basically, what the essence of that means is a person whose ultimate and unconditional duty is protect the people and the land. So many of our veterans from World War I and World War II and Korea, sadly, as the time passes, people age, and they're all gone to the spirit world now. But we still have a new generation of people that still contribute to the Canadian Armed Forces. And during that time, there was a collection of interviews conducted by Willie and myself that was happened in '88, late '80s, and into the early '90s. Right up to 1995, that's when the year Willie passed away, sadly. There's also an impressive collection of photographs that were collected during that time. And somebody mentioned earlier about our website, because up to that time, we weren't having much luck trying to secure funding for a book or any kind of publication. And just by luck, Industry Canada at the time had this program for digitizing historical artifacts and photos. So we applied for that, and we were successful. And we partnered up with Thunder Bay Public Library. And we were fortunate to hire 4 Anishinaabe Lakehead University students, and their names were mentioned earlier as well. But I wanted to add Greg Quachkin. He was from Treaty 9. Stan Alto and his sister, Beverly Alto were from Treaty 3, and Owen Sokol also from Treaty 3. And what was great, those particular students, the areas they came from, brought more stuff, more stories, more connections of photographs, and it was thing just grew from there. But today, we're taking it to another step. So today we support this opportunity to collaborate with the partners to create a traveling exhibit to First Nation communities in Treaty 3, Treaty 9, Treaty 5, and Robinson Superior, 1850, Northwestern Ontario. And we welcome this with our open minds and open hearts. Miigwech Bizindawayik. Aho.
Miigwech, David. Always nice to hear the history of how something started. I was doing the math, how old I was. I think I was in second year university at that time, in 1988 when he graduated. So not far behind, but certainly it's nice to see where something has come over the last 40 years and is going to continue to grow. And so on that note, we're going to hear from another guest, Scott Bradley, who is the executive director from the Thunder Bay Museum, who's going to share some remarks and also share a formal announcement. So welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Denise. Good afternoon, everyone. I am honored and humbled to speak to you on behalf of the Thunder Bay Historical Museum Society's members, staff, and volunteers. Before I continue, I must acknowledge my own bias and privilege as a European male from the United States who has never served in the military. I have a long career working in military museums for over 16 years and with veterans of all backgrounds, but I will not belabor this. Our responsibilities at museums and other public history institutions and related fields include preserving and educating on the public on various subjects through standards of exhibition, publications, educational programming, and other means. However, we frequently go a step further and consider commemoration when it comes to military and paramilitary topics to show deferential respect for the sacrifices people have made for our civilizations on a deeper level. And I want to take a moment to talk about sacrifices. It is clear from the historical documents that the term's broader meaning is and should be emphasized. Aside from the ultimate sacrifice, Indigenous soldiers, sailors, and aviators risked terrible repercussions to their long-term relationships, suffering discrimination within the military, injuries to their physical and mental health, and in the past, their status under the Indian Act. Both deployments to a war zone and the everyday dangers of military training and life jeopardize these facets of humanity. To be clear, statistically, there are still significant injuries and deaths for military personnel, especially Indigenous military personnel, even during peacetime, from traumatic stressors, vehicle accidents, training accidents, suicide, and murders that we as civilians may not experience at the rates that they do. Through historical remembrances, such as the exhibits around me today, and in the future, we must continue to express our thanks for the risks taken and honor their accomplishments. The Thunder Bay Museum is happy to partner with local content for the exhibit here today and to provide material support in the form of the mannequins. Thank you to curator and archivist Michael DeYoung, exhibits curator Jessica Stacy, and collections curator Sarah Silvestri for their contributions. I'm happy to announce today that the Thunder Bay Museum, in collaboration with Intergroup Consultants Limited, the Indigenous Initiatives Departments at Lakehead University and Confederation College, Kena Chiwanung Historical Center, and the museums across the region, the launch of the Indigenous Veterans of Northwestern Ontario Traveling Exhibit Project. This innovative project, supported by the Department of Canadian Heritage Museums Assistance Program and the Future Generations Foundation, aims to establish lasting partnerships with Indigenous communities and organizations to document and share the untold stories of Indigenous veterans collectively. The project is currently in the research and development phase. The project team looking to collaborate with Indigenous communities, individuals, and organizations interested in sharing their stories or helping to guide the creation of the exhibit. The exhibit will blend archival research with photographs, videos, and testimonies from veterans and their families, and will be presented in English and Anishinaabemowin. Those who wish to share their stories will receive honorariums for their time and knowledge. Additionally, there will be paid positions for Indigenous youth to participate in the delivery of the traveling exhibit. This project represents the shared effort to honor and highlight stories and experiences of Indigenous veterans and ensure that these significant contributions to Canadian military history are shared and remembered. This exhibit will visit various rural and remote communities across northwestern Ontario, as well as schools, university campuses, and museums, making this history and essential stories accessible to students and the general public. So following this event, please find Kaylee Spears, who I'm going to point out, she's waving over there. Check out the poster off to my left if you have any questions or want to be involved in this exciting project. Again, thank you, merci, Chigwingwesh, for inviting us to participate in this Indigenous Veterans Day event. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Now I have one more piece of paper here that Stacy gave me. So I just wanted to acknowledge the project team who are present for this exciting event. So we had the Thunder Bay Museum. If you can give us another wave, please. There we have it. And that was Scott Bradley. Michael De Jong, is he here? Oh, there's Michael. Thank you. Jessica Stacy, the exhibits coordinator. Is Jessica here? Not here? Okay. Kaylee Spears again, another wave. Stacy is also, or Kaylee is also a Lakehead alum, the curator and the archaeologist at Intergroup Consultants in Treaty 1 territory. Kaylee is one of the original curators of the Indigenous Veterans Day Treaty exhibit from Treaty number 3 that this project is based upon. And Kaylee previously worked as a curator at 2 museums in Northwestern Ontario, the Kanachi-Wenung Historical Center and the Fort Francis Museum and Cultural Project. And she'll be the leads project facilitator for the duration of this project. So miigwech, Kaylee, thank you. Anna Chief, who at the time that this was submitted was staff here at Lakehead University and is now working at Confederation College. So Anna is from Thunder Bay. She's now the Director of Indigenous Initiatives at Confederation College. Prior to that was the Indigenous Outreach and Recruitment Coordinator here at Lakehead for 10 years. In her roles, Anna has built extensive relationships with individuals and organizations across Northwestern Ontario and will assist with community engagement, finding language speakers, exhibit travel coordination, and the general direction of the project. So, miigwech, thank you, Anna. And Jesse Richard, who is a Brock alumni. Jesse is a curator of Kanachi-Wenung Historical Center in Treaty 3 territory. She said she resides in Emo, which is not too far down the highway. So after moving to Northwestern Ontario from Nova Scotia in early 2022 and previously working in museums across Southern Ontario, Jessica found herself in the archives of the Manitou Mounds, where she quickly moved into her curator position and has hosted Lakehead University faculty and staff on more than one occasion. So Jessie is thrilled to consult on this project and help preserve and share the stories of Indigenous veterans from the corner of the world she now calls home. So thank you very much. I would like to invite Melissa to do a closing prayer prior to my final comments. Next.
She said, just leave the papers here. And I'm like, I should hide them so then she doesn't know what she's saying next. That'd be mean.
My memory's not that good.
But funny. Bonjour once again. A great deal of truth has been shared here in this afternoon, in this gathering of many people from different areas of the community and also from outside of the community. As part of Makwa Dodem, as part of Bear Clan, I'm a protector of the community, of the marginalized, of our culture, of our language, of the land. I'm a medicine carrier. And so all of these things, when I sit and I listen to the stories that have been shared and the initiatives that are being created and hearing about how people are coming together regardless of where they have been in life, coming together to work as a community to speak and share this truth, it brings me a lot of happiness and joy inside because it shows me that all of you have courage as well in order to hear the hard truth that perhaps we didn't know. And now I hope and pray that you will go out into the world and share what you have heard today so that we can become a better and a stronger community as we grow and as time goes on. By sharing the stories and the things that we have heard today, by learning more ourselves, because this is just a starting point, then we honor the sacrifices that have been made on our behalf by people who are now in the spirit world and by the people who walk with us still and by generations who will follow us, who will give of their time and who will commit to to perhaps making decisions that will take them away from their families so that we can all live in a world that experiences freedom. So my prayer for you now is that as we travel back to our home fires, if you're not from home, that you do so safely, that you remember to make time for yourself so that you can stay well, and that you always act with words and share words and actions that are full of love and kindness, especially for those who are struggling and who are pushing back against that. Jimikwech, to our esteemed leaders and especially to our veterans who are here today, Chimikwech can never be enough for all that you've done for us. So, aho, miigwech.
Miigwech, for sharing those words of kindness and gratitude. And I would like to thank everyone who joined us for today. I know we have some people who helped set up who aren't here at the moment, but it does take quite a lot of time from all of the different departments throughout the region, but also within the sites of Lakehead University and Confederation College to set up exhibits. These exhibits will be up until the end of Monday, November 11th, so they'll give you time to come in and visit them through the weekend. We do encourage you to visit both sites because we have different exhibits at each site. And so the Confederation College, it's in the Upwind Lounge, so you can go park in the main area and then walk in that way. I would like to thank Kanachi Wenang Historical Center, Fort Francis Museum, the Thunder Bay Museum, the City of Thunder Bay, the Thunder Bay Military Museum, the Native Veterans Association of Northwestern Ontario, and for your collaboration to make these exhibits possible. And we had a very special person, Captain George Romick, who worked with Stacy. Stacy, if you can give us a wave. Is Captain George Romick here today? No. Every time I would talk to Stacy on the phone, she's like, I'm just on the phone with Captain Romick. Can I call you right back? So I know they had a lot of coordination and discussion in order to set up this exhibit, guidance with the artifacts that we have here today. So really wanted to thank everybody. I'm not sure if I mentioned the Thunder Bay Military Museum, but I think that's where Captain Romick is from. And we do encourage you to come stay, please join us for some food. It's part of our customs to always have a meal, a food, a feast. And so we encourage you and invite you to join us for some lunch before you go on with the rest of your day. And again, thank you everybody for helping us come together to recognize this important day through the weekend. And I know many of us will be out around the community on November 11th as well. So again, to everybody who is here, our speakers, those who served, those who had family members who served, miigwech, and thank you very much.